today. On to the main event. Please welcome Harrison Township Supervisor Verkest.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's Friday morning, and it's a great day. I'd like to begin also by pointing out, much like Commissioner Marino, I'm often asked, I'm 26 as well, so I wanted to get that out of the way. I'd also like to thank our sponsors. We've heard them all again. I won't go through a whole list, but without their support, we wouldn't have the chance to get together this morning. Certainly also like to thank our hosts, North Star Sail Club, one of the gems of Harrison Township since 1946, so a little piece of history in our community. Thanks to the Chamber for organizing the event and promoting this morning's event. Also, thank you to Catering to You for this morning's delicious breakfast. Also like to recognize some other folks that are in attendance that we haven't heard about. We have our Township Clerk, Adam Witt. We have two folks from the L'Anse Creuse School District. We had Superintendent Jackie Johnson and a school member, Don Hubler. Three of our township trustees, David Brado, Bill Battanti, and Larry Tominello. We have some folks that also serve in other capacities at the township. We have two individuals. Eric Foster is on our Economic Development Corporation, and John Swadish is a member of our Downtown Development Authority Board. Two department heads from the township. Dave Axtell is our Public Works Director, and Joe Maples is our building official for about a year. And certainly not in order of importance, but we have the North Star Sail Club Commodore, Chris Gerken. This is really his home territory, so he should have been first, I guess. But again, most of all, thanks to all of you here today, and welcome to the 2015 State of the Township Address. In short summary, Harrison Township is doing great and getting better all the time. Part of the reason why we're doing great is due to leadership at the higher levels, county, state, and federal levels. We heard a little bit about how fortunate we are to have so many people that represent us at the higher levels, and how a great majority of them live in Harrison Township. Clearly, Harrison Township is where all the cool kids live. But their decisions have a huge impact on our lifestyle, on our residents, and on our township, and we're thankful for the leadership that they bring. Some of you may know, but others may not, so I'd like to say a word about the Pride of Michigan. The Pride of Michigan is typically birthed just a few slips to the west. For those of you that don't know, the Pride of Michigan is the vessel that supports the Sea Cadet program. It's a nonprofit organization which trains young men and women ages 11 through 17 in maritime and underwater exploration. Kind of like Boy Scouts meets the U.S. Navy. It's a great program, really a good deal for Harrison Township. The Pride of Michigan is a beautiful 81-foot wood-hauled former U.S. Navy vessel, and I was hoping to have it as the backdrop for my State of the Township speech. But County Executive Mark Hackle had to go and pull a fast one and pull it out of the slip a couple days earlier, and he used it for his backdrop for his State of the Lake address earlier this week. So he seems to always get to the punch a little sooner, and for those of you that are paying attention, he seems to get a lot of press. But you know, there was this one time, May 14th, 2014, a date which will live in infamy. I happen to have a copy of the Macomb Daily from May 19th. Not the original, I keep that in a vault. I'm sure all of you can see this large picture on the front page. That's of me. but most of you would probably struggle to see this smaller photograph here. That's Mark Hackle in a less important kind of off to the side spot. So he may have got me on the Pride of Michigan, but he doesn't always win. So in the photo, I'm looking out at Lake St. Clair. Lake St. Clair is our biggest neighbor. Our lake shoreline is longer than our land shoreline with all of our neighboring communities combined. We have 15 miles of lake shoreline, almost twice as much as St. Clair Shores and 3 times as much as Chesterfield Township. Clearly, Lake St. Clair is Harrison Township's. More people access the lake from Harrison Township than any other place. I would like to ask each of you one question. I really want to ask you this question. I'm expecting an answer. Think for a moment of the first time in your life that you saw Lake St. Clair. Likely when you were a younger person, but stop and think for a moment. Where was that? Where did you see Lake St. Clair? Who could tell me where they saw Lake St. Clair for the first time?
Blue Lagoon Marina.
Blue Lagoon Marina. Good. Metro Beach. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else?
Sail Club.
The Sail Club, okay. How many of you would say Metro Beach was the first place you saw Lake St. Clair? Yep. And that's the result that I've seen. I was involved in this kind of a group discussion, and that was the most common answer that we found. And no knock against Lake St. Clair Metro Park. It's a beautiful park. It's a gem right here in Harrison Township. But we need more of that public access to the lake. Not just boat access, but pedestrian access, visual access. I mean, the lake is just beautiful just to see. It's a great backdrop. And this is what we are hoping to have in our Pier Place district. The Macomb County Planning and Economic Development Department helped us realize the opportunity that we had with the lakefront at Jefferson and Crocker along the lake's edge. Our engineering firm, Wade Trim, helped us acquire a grant in 2013 to study redevelopment along Jefferson near Crocker. And throughout 2014, we worked on our waterfront redevelopment plan. We finally adopted it in February of this year. We also worked on establishing a downtown development authority and a tax increment finance district, and we approved that just last month in May. For those of you that may not know, tax increment financing is a state act, a state mechanism that allows us to capture taxes. I'll try to give a brief explanation of how it works. We've established a district, and when we look at that district, it's less than 3% of the township, but it encompasses about $25 million of taxable value property. We draw a line at that $25 million in value. And all of the taxes that are collected by the various taxing entities, whether it's the county or SMART or the Detroit Zoo, they continue to receive the tax revenue. However, as the value of that district grows, the amount of growth we get to capture, the district gets to capture, most of the tax revenue from that area. Schools are exempt, so the schools continue to capture all the tax revenue from that district. But as that value grows, those taxes are captured for the sole purpose of reinvesting back into that district, trying to kind of build the value of that district. As the value grows, there's more investment, the value grows more revenue is captured, and once you elevate that district to a certain level, you can end the process, and now those taxing entities in the long run end up actually collecting more than they would have had that investment not been made. Now, the purpose of this district is not to acquire land. The township isn't going to buy land. The township isn't looking to force anyone to move or to sell. We don't have that right. It's not our land. I like to say that what we're trying to do is fertilize the soil. We're trying to take that area and make it more attractive for investment and to capture revenue to increase the value of that district. So for those of you that have seen that, and that's what we're trying to accomplish in that Pure Place district. And hopefully one day we can have a state of the township address there with the lake as our backdrop. It appears that most of you are still awake, so let's do what we can to change that and talk about finances and operations at the township. I feel like we're obligated to talk about that at this speech. We recently completed our township's audit. Once again, we received an unqualified opinion, which sounds bad, but actually that's what we want. It's the best report. We have new contracts with all township employees in all 3 bargaining units. Our general fund, our police fund, and our water and sewer fund are all in order. They're all within budget, operating based on the revenues that we receive. Our fire fund currently has a deficit. As you might understand, not just with fire, but just about all township operations, labor is the largest portion of our fire budget. Our fire union has gone through now 2 rounds of concessionary contract negotiations, but despite the concessions they've taken, we still face an operating deficit in our fire budget. The Board of Trustees recognized this and formed a committee of experts and residents to examine the budget and the service and the operations of our fire department. This committee of experts in government and in fire service, we have no less than 3 fire chiefs, 2 of whom are residents of the township, because all the cool kids live here. And they're studying the operations, coming back with a recommendation of how we can address this issue. But I can give some insight on the reason why we are where we are. Currently, the township assesses and collects 7.67 mills for operations. 5.54 of those mills, or certainly the vast majority, 5 out of 7 mills, fund the fire operations. It's the largest part of our budget. As a point of reference, the township collects no tax revenue, no property tax revenue for the operation of the township. So the 7.67 mills are strictly police services, fire services, and since last year, the voters approved a $0.5 mil for the library. But the problem is the 5.54 mills that we collect for fire, that's the highest millage rate we've ever had. Yet it generates almost $600,000 less revenue than what we got in 2009 when we only collected 5 mills. So we've actually increased through a vote of the people. The township board doesn't have that authority, but the voters have approved an increase of 11% in the tax rate, or the amount of mills assessed on their property. Yet, even with that voted in increase, we're collecting 11% less than we did 5 years ago. So not adjusted for inflation, we're literally $600,000 in the hole on our revenue. And this is simply based on the fact that our millage rate is based on the taxable value. So while people have gone to the polls and approved what they perceive to be a tax increase, they're literally paying 11% less than they did 5 years ago. That loss in property value, or really the loss in taxable value, is something that the current state laws prevent us from really doing anything about. It's capped. That rebound is capped. Property values are coming back, but the taxable value can only come back so fast. Despite this, our firefighters continue to offer the highest level of advanced life support, along with transport services, which translates simply to the cool kids. We give the best care possible for our residents. As an alternative, we've been working on a study with Sterling Heights, Clinton Township, and Mount Clemens on the possibility of a mid-Macomb fire authority. So imagine a unified fire district from 14 Mile Road to Hall Road, from the east to the west side of the county, to see if it's possible, if through a combination of those departments, we might be able to offer some economic advantages. We expect results from that study before the end of this year. Our 750,000 gallon water storage tank has been in operation for over 3 years now, saving between $200,000 and $300,000 per year in water rates from the city of Detroit. In essence, we fill the tank in the evening hours or nighttime hours when there is no demand on the water system. But during the day, when the demand for water is greatest, we empty that tank and reduce the peak use, thereby putting less burden on Detroit's system, and for that, they give us a credit. We have a new water meter reading system that can actually detect abnormally high water consumption at each residence or business. This system then notifies us that there is an abnormally high use. We have the ability then, and we notify residents that may have some sort of a leak or some sort of a problem in their system within their home, a toilet that's running, something that's running that they're not aware of. And this early notification frequently saves thousands, literally thousands of dollars for our residents in one incident. So imagine that you're away for a weekend, you're at the cottage, or worse yet, you're a snowbird, and you've got a leak. You've got a hose bib that broke, something that's just running full blast. It adds up pretty quick. We were awarded a $1.37 million SAW grant from the state of Michigan last year. SAW is an acronym for Stormwater, Asset Management, and Wastewater. The grant requires us to use those funds to spend on engineering projects for stormwater and wastewater. We have 2 new sanitary sewer projects that have been designed and are ready to be sourced. And we are currently in the process of redesigning and rebuilding the stormwater pump station at Beechwood. That pump station and that detention pond handles drainage for over 900 acres of the township, which is almost 20% of our township, so it's certainly a critical part of our infrastructure. The plans include a greater storage capacity, and the project will also include strategic cleanouts of county drains within the drainage district. Building starts are up. Building permits for new homes. In 2013, we had a total of 5 permits for new homes. Last year, there were a total of 15 permits for new homes. And in the first 5 months of this year, we already have 12 permits for new homes. So that's a positive. We're seeing a rebound and there's not that much vacant land in Harrison Township. But again, people are moving in because the cool kids want to be here. Our assessor reports that home sales are up 24% this year compared to last year. Current sales suggest an increase in value of property within the township of 12%. That's a projection. Again, we won't capture that because it's capped, but we're seeing a rebound in the property values. There's a demand for housing in Harrison Township. And where we once experienced a lot of distress sales are now less than 1% of total sales, and about 1/2 of sales are for more than the asking price. I apologize, I got a phone call here. Is it okay if I take it? Is that all right? Okay. Hello? Oh, wow, really? Hey, that's really good news. All right, good. Well, thank you for calling. Good. Sorry about that. That was 41B District Court calling to tell me that they just received another grant for over $300,000. Chief Judge Lucido, along with Judge Davis and Judge Fuca, they collectively run and manage the court. That court serves all of Harrison Township, all of Mount Clemens, and a part of Clinton Township. They do an excellent job. Collectively, they manage the court in such a way that it is under budget every year. Not only self-sustaining, it actually generates, I know it maybe isn't very interesting, but a small profit. So at the end of the year, they send us a check which we're able to use to help to pay for police services. So I talk to my peers in other communities and they say, how are you managing this court problem? And I say, pretty easy. We just get a check once a year and put it in the bank. They've expanded services at the court, including a drug sobriety court and a veterans court. And I'd like to take a minute to explain the drug sobriety court. When I first became supervisor, I certainly didn't understand it, and I think at first blush I kind of thought to myself, well, why? My initial response was, well, that's a bad idea. What do you need to do something special there? But what I've learned in talking with the deputies and the detectives from the sheriff's department that serve our community is that the vast majority, one detective told me 100%, of smash and grab crimes, break and entry in a car, break into your home when you're gone, that sort of thing, is just an opportunity to take a quick grab. It's 100% of the time drug related, they say. Someone that's trying to feed a drug habit, they take your goods, sell them for whatever they can, go buy the drugs, and when that's done, they're looking for the next home. Our sheriff's department has been very successful in catching, apprehending these people. They're prosecuted, charged with a crime, and oftentimes they serve some time in jail. But eventually they're out, and they get back into that habit, and they go through that cycle again. The way the drug sobriety court works is that they pull these individuals aside that are eligible. They put them through a pretty rigorous program if the folks choose to volunteer, and as opposed to jail time, they have to go to 90 AA or NA meetings in 90 days. They have to participate in drug and alcohol screening regularly, so you can't relapse. They have group therapy, they have to go through counseling, they go through a pretty rigorous process. And if they're able to actually get sober and remain sober for typically maybe an 18-month period, they actually graduate from the program. And by doing so, we've actually changed lives. We've taken someone who's been struggling with an addiction, and as opposed to incarcerating them, putting them back on the street, only to have them come back in the future, we're actually changing lives. There's a cost for that, but the reality is in the long term, there's actually a savings because that's less property crimes. And it's somebody who went from being a burden on our society to being a productive member of society. Over the last 6 years, the folks at 41B have secured over $500,000 in grants to fund that court. So we certainly thank Judges Lucido, Davis, and Fuca, which 2 of 3 live in Harrison Township. We're working on the 3rd. Let's talk about services to our residents. That's what government does. We provide services. The Board of Trustees just executed a new 5-year contract with Rizzo Services. The result of that contract is a savings of $25 per resident per year, which works out to almost $200,000 in savings a year. It's pretty significant money. But it doesn't end there. We also have new services as a result of that contract. Rizzo Services now provides curbside chipping to our residents once a month. They're providing at no cost free wheeled carts for recycling for those residents who might want one. And during the life of the 5-year contract, they also will repair or replace the trash receptacles at no cost. And starting in September, Rizzo will unveil their Recycle Rewards program, an incentive program for those residents who choose to recycle regularly, where they receive savings certificates over time for their participation. We also recently signed an agreement with Simple Recycling. This is a service that's new to the township, and it's the first in Macomb County. Simple Recycling provides curbside pickup of clothing and household items on the same day as your regular trash pickup. Simple Recycling at no cost provides bags and tags that you can use to put your items in, the clothing, household items, put them out by the curb so that they can be identified. They then sort and resell or recycle the items. What we learned is that the EPA estimates that 85% of textiles and clothing end up in our waste stream. The idea behind this is that we remove these items from the waste stream. The company, Simple Recycling, gives a small payment back to the township per ton for the items that they collect. So in the end, less goods end up in the waste stream, more goods are recycled, no cost to the residents, and a small income component for the township. But that's enough trash talk. I got another call. Is it okay if I take it? Okay, good. Thanks. Hello? Wow, really? You must have just called Steve right before me. Oh, that's good. Good. Awesome. Thank you very much. That was the county's Planning and Economic Development Department. Young Fung is a supplier in Harrison Township, an automotive supplier, and I thought Steve might break the news, but they're investing $56 million in their facility and actually expanding their facility right here in Harrison Township. They estimate adding an additional 519 jobs right here in Harrison Township as a result of that investment. And as part as a part of that investment, Executive Drive is going to be widened and completely rebuilt as it should be, as a sturdy industrial road to handle the traffic that it does, all funded by state and county dollars. It's over a $2 million project, so that's really good news. So we're happy to hear about more investment, more cool kids moving to Harrison Township. Harrison Township Public Library. This is our first year as a tax-funded library. And as I say this, I realize that when I hit all the announcements, I didn't introduce two individuals we have Diane Marveso, who sits on our library board. And Carol used to serve as the president, but that was prior to the new board, so, but I certainly need to welcome them. And they have some good news too. As a result of the half-mill tax that voters approved last year, the library now offers free access to the entire collection of books and electronic media across the entire state through a program called MELCAT. The library is a part of the Suburban Library Co-op, which means that your free Harrison Township library card is good at every library in Macomb County. Our library is adding new DVD and book titles daily. And also, I'm fortunate to be able to announce that they now have hired their first full-time library director, Mr. Dan Hutchins. He starts this Monday. Mr. Hutchins previously served as the assistant library director for the Brandon Public Library. Starting August 1st, the library will be open for a full 40 hours per week. And this Saturday, June 30th, they're hosting their big summer kickoff. I'm sorry? 13th. Yeah, did I say 13? I'm sorry, yep, this is June 13th, just tomorrow. From 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., you're invited to come to the picnic. There'll be free hot dogs and refreshments prepared by State Representative Anthony Ferlini. They have a huge book sale, and children can sign up for their children's summer reading program. So a lot of exciting things happening at the library. I suppose it's worth noting that without the efforts of a lot of people, one key person would be Representative Ferlini. When he was supervisor, worked pretty hard working with the county library to get it started on a volunteer basis, and it's been growing ever since. So thanks to all the folks involved in the library for that. Our bike paths are growing. The engineering is complete, and we're getting close to construction for a new section of the bike path, which will run along North River Road from Bridgeview all the way to McRae Harbor. So that's good news. On a more serious note, Staff Sergeant Ergen V. Osman was a member of the military that served 9 tours of duty for the Army and Marines in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He gave his life serving our country on May 26, 2011. Last September 19th, we dedicated a portion of our bike path along South River Road, which runs from Jefferson to Lakeshore. It's a beautiful section of the path nestled between the marsh and the Clinton River. We dedicate that in honor of Staff Sergeant Ergen V. Osman and his service to our country. Our township is located within the L'Anse Creuse Public School District. L'Anse Creuse is often one of the items, if not the first item, listed on real estate listings for homes for sale in Harrison Township. So it's truly a feature and a gem, a reason, amongst others, that cool kids move here. L'Anse Creuse provides a high-quality education with a very, very diverse different programs that are available, a lot of different courses, both academic and career-oriented. I'm a proud L'Anse Creuse graduate, as I know Commissioner Marino is, and Township Attorney Rob Huth, and I'm sure plenty others here. The school board recently approved the refinance of bonds, saving our taxpayers $20 million. And our graduating class of 2015 was awarded almost $2.3 million in scholarships. So congratulations to our 2015 graduates. Harrison Township is approximately 14 square miles. We're not a big township by any standard, and 6 of those are occupied by Selfridge Air National Guard Base. Selfridge has been actively protecting the interests of the United States government for 98 years. There are no less than 44 branches of the military and federal government stationed at Selfridge, and there are 2 primary aircraft missions at Selfridge: the KC-135 Stratotankers and the A-10 Thunderbolts, or Warthogs, as I guess they're affectionately known. I don't know if that's an affectionate name, but a dozen of the Warthogs, along with approximately 350 personnel from Selfridge, are currently deployed in the Middle East to assist in the fight against the Islamic State terrorists. Some in the Air Force want to cut the Warthogs from the budget, despite pleas from our soldiers and officers on the battlefield. The Macomb County Chamber has formed a military affairs committee and is leading the fight against these cuts. This committee exists for the sole purpose of lobbying on behalf of Selfridge Air Base. I would like to, at this time, extend thanks to Grace Shore and the Macomb County Chamber for their efforts to support and promote the Air Base. Mark clapped, but I'm sure his wife would not have. What's coming in the future? Well, in the very immediate future, this Monday, our Harrison Township Beautification Commission is beginning construction on 2 median gardens along Metro Parkway at Crocker. This is the gateway to our community. We're fortunate, amongst many volunteers at the township, to have the service of the Beautification Commission. They work hard year-round to keep Harrison Township beautiful. Jim and Sue Keene and all of their volunteers do a great job, and we're appreciative. If you happen to be driving around in Harrison Township and you see a man and a gentleman on the side of the road working, that's Jim and Sue Keene. We had to design vests for them because at one particular time they were chopping down some growth with a machete, and someone called the police, said there's some crazy man wielding a sword, and so we had to sort that out. But they're tireless workers. The Department of Natural Resources is in the process of improving the Hall Road boat launch facility. They're adding parking and improving access at the site. And actually that work is scheduled to be completed this weekend. The DNR is also pursuing a grant with plans of expanding and improving the Clinton River cutoff site, or what we commonly might refer to as the spillway launch site. This could lead to a park stretching from their current boat launch site all the way to the township's park at the mouth of the spillway. The focus will be on fishing at that site, but the improvement could help to solve a big problem we have in the area. Right now what we have is we have a park that a lot of folks like to access for fishing that's right along the edge of the mouth of the spillway. The problem is the path that gets you to that park runs right in the front or right at the foot of the bridge on Jefferson over the spillway, and it's a dangerous condition. If the land from the current DNR site all the way to the spillway becomes public, it gives us the opportunity to have pedestrian crossing and vehicle access at Ballard Road, which can then run parallel to Jefferson and access all of that land. Last year, I reported that the Macomb County Public Works Department was trying to get grants to improve the spillway, and I was hoping they were going to make a phone call at this point, but I'm not feeling anything. So I will tell you that many people and agencies worked for years to secure $20 million in federal grants to improve water quality for the entire Clinton River watershed. This is a watershed that stretches in most of Macomb County, most of Oakland County, and actually stretches into Lapeer and St. Clair counties. Of the $20 million, $6 million of that grant money has been placed for Harrison Township projects, including a $4 million grant for the spillway. That grant will be used to remove invasive species from the spillway and its shorelines, to naturalize the shoreline. When the spillway was built in the late 40s, early 50s, it was designed to do one thing: carry water from the Clinton River to alleviate the flooding for Mount Clemens and Harrison Township, and it does that. But at the time, engineers didn't understand that building the banks a certain way can not only help to get the water out, but it can also enhance habitat for wildlife. So they wish to resculpture the banks to increase wildlife habitat, and also add places for public access, such as fishing piers. The concern is if we go through the trouble to improve the banks of the spillway, we don't want that land now trampled by folks who want to get out and fish, so we'll put in some fishing piers. I think they did a survey and found 26 species of fish just in the spillway. Also, the DNR maintains the Harley Ensign boat launch site at the end of South River, just right down the road from here. If you guys missed this place, it's probably where you ended up. The grants include $2 million to soften the shoreline, which is currently riprap or large chunks of rock along the shoreline, and potentially producing barrier islands just south of the site, which will hopefully help to redirect some of the water flow that comes from the Clinton River along the bay south of the launch site. And they also have plans to improve public access along the shoreline for the park. We're also very fortunate to have Lake St. Clair Metro Park within our borders, and the park also has some improvements upcoming. The West Beach is scheduled to have some improvements. They're replacing the Tot Lot. For those of us that grew up here, it's a place we used to get excited to go see. I remember Milky the Clown. I guess I'm not 26. And they're also hosting the premier bass fishing tournament for North America, and that's the Bassmaster Elite Series, August 27th through 30th. They'll also include with that a bass brew and barbecue festival. And they're performing more paving work with improvements to their parking lot and the entrance and exit to the park. Speaking of paving, and something that I know will bring great pleasure to Trustee Tominello, the Department of Roads for Macomb County has scheduled for this year extensive pavement replacement on Metro Parkway running from Crocker to Jefferson. So for residents in Harrison Township, that's great news. But even more fun than that, Harrison Township is once again hosting Aquapalooza this July 25th and 26th. Eric is here from Belmar Harbor, so I'll say thanks to Belmar Harbor and Mac Ray, amongst others, for all of their efforts to secure this great event. And before you clap for them, let me just tell you what Aquapalooza is. If you've been there, you're already clapping, but it's the place to be. So it just brings more cool kids to Harrison Township. It's a 2-day outdoor concert, 7 live bands along with DJs over the 2-day period. They erect a stage over 100 feet long out in the middle of the lake, extending about 200 feet out into the lake. Imagine that scene of hundreds, if not thousands of boats surrounding, certainly thousands of people on their boats and in the water swimming, listening to a free concert of rock, pop, and country music over a 2-day period. It's just an incredible experience. If you haven't gone, you have to go. You've got to be there. So thanks to Eric for his efforts in bringing that here. And there's more to come. We're constantly working on improvements, and I've been fortunate to be involved in early stages of some exciting developments within the township that are still in the works, but there's a lot more to come that's going to be great for our community. And I can tell you that I am proud to serve as Harrison Township's 31st supervisor, and it's been my honor to give this address to all of you. So thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if any of the comments led to any questions that you have, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if not, or if you're shy about asking questions, you can certainly ask me later. So thanks again.